What's up everyone, it's Lord Ryujin, and I did a video yesterday about Satoru Iwata's death, and I'm still a little bit choked up about it, because as I continue to read Facebook feeds, Twitter feeds, and watch YouTube videos, it's something that continues to hit me hard. With Satoru Iwata's passing, a part of me is gone, because I've been with Nintendo pretty much ever since the beginning. Since the NES days, many of the games that I have played, even today, have Satoru Iwata's name attached to it in one way or another. So to go back and think about that, and to think that there will be a future without Satoru Iwata in it, and that any potential game that I might play in the future, such as an Animal Crossing, which he had a part in, or if they come out with another balloon fight type game, that something like that isn't going to have him to it. That's going to be kind of hard. It would be like Miyamoto not being around and playing a Zelda game. It would kind of hurt just a little bit. And this might be a two-part video. I don't know, I might wrap it all up into one. I'm not quite sure. As of right now, depending on how long it takes me to talk. But I wanted to go on a little bit of a discussion, if I may. And forgive me for going around back and forth. My mind is really, I'm doing my best to think of all the possibilities, and while there's a part of me that doesn't want to talk about this particular subject because I feel as though it's a little too soon right now, I feel as though it's a necessary evil to talk about the future of Nintendo and what it potentially holds. Now, if that said, it's very much likely that we will go forward. That Nintendo will go forward. That they have a lot of money in the bank. They can afford to go and continue to manufacture hardware, and the NX could very well be a successful system, and they can continue to go forward. But I have a little bit of reservation, because it depends upon whoever takes the reign of Nintendo. And I know that right now it's Miyamoto, and I think they said Konami or something like that. But depending upon who takes over the reins, I think determines what happens with Nintendo. I mean, would they bow out of the console race and become a developer like Sega? Would they continue to go forward and make the NX and potential future hardware, or will they just bow out altogether, say the Wii U is it? Will they try the NX and then bow out, or what? There really is no telling at this point. And I've seen a lot of varying opinions online. A lot of people want them to be third-party developers only. A lot of people want them to continue going forward. And I'm going to talk a little bit about everything. That's why I said this video is probably going to be quite lengthy, or potentially even two parts. But I know that I personally want to see Nintendo go forward. But I can explain all this one at a time. Like I said, it depends upon who ends up taking over Nintendo. And when it comes to who is going to take over Nintendo, there's all kinds of fantastic candidates for that role, I think. One possibility that I keep hearing is people want Miyamoto to take over. And I think that that's a good option. I mean, Miyamoto has stood side by side with Iwata the past few years, and also next to Reggie. So I believe that if anybody had Iwata's mind frame and can move forward with the idea of what Mr. Iwata was trying to do, and that is make a system that's about the games, not about the media, but about the games. Make the games about fun, and not about being dark, gray, gritty, first-person shooters with no substance, but to have it be full of life and to bring fun, because that's what games are. They are a form of entertainment. They're supposed to be fun. But at the same time, though, would Miyamoto be a good pick? I mean, he's in his 60s. He's a little stubborn with his way of thinking. And of course, him being the president of Nintendo, no one's going to tell him no. And that might not be the best. Plus, just to make sure that we get a president that sticks around for a while, I think that it might be best to get someone a little younger. Perhaps Sakurai. Now, Sakurai is my choice. Because I see Sakurai as a visionary. I mean, if you look at the stuff that he has done with HAL Laboratories, and some of the things that he continues to do within Smash Brothers, I see him as a little bit of a visionary. He could have that dedication to put his heart and soul into any game that he produces, any system that he works with, to make sure that it brings forward the best possible product. So Miyamoto is a good pick, although I wonder if his mindset. Plus, I think Miyamoto also is a little bit he's content with working on just some little side projects that he's working on, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I've heard some people say Kojima, and I think Kojima would be a pretty awesome pick, honestly, to have him come out of the woodwork, basically give a big middle finger to Konami and say all those great ideas that I have are now Nintendo's, and to see how that would work out, I think would be really good. But at the same time, though, I don't think Kojima would be able to bring over most of his properties with him, since you know, Metal Gear is still owned by Konami. But at the same time, though, that doesn't mean that Nintendo can't get a Metal Gear-like game, or get a lot of games that are similar to what Kojima's already worked on. But regardless of whoever takes over the reins of Nintendo, the big question does come down to what are they going to do going forward, as I've talked about earlier. And honestly, I think that the best option is for them to continue to go forward. And the reason why I state this is because people are just like, oh, they just need to go ahead and they need to get out and they need to go to third party. They just need to be software only. And I think about this logically as an old school gamer that was around when Sega and Nintendo were competing with each other, and I see the state that Sega is in now. And I think I don't want that to be Nintendo. I don't want Nintendo to basically, pardon my French, but I don't want them to whore out Mario and make it to where every year there's a Mario game and it basically loses its substance, as some of the Sonic games have. You know, where they start becoming all these crazy ideas and not focusing more on what made Sonic great, like back in the day. And Sega had some great hardware back in the day. We're talking about the Dreamcast and the Saturn and the Genesis and just all kinds of fantastic IPs. Echo the Dolphin, Sonic was amongst them. Shenmue, even though that was a third-party developed game. But you get what I'm saying. There was a lot of great IPs that were attached to Sega, and now all Sega does is focus on their big blue mascot, Sonic. And I don't want Nintendo to go down that route, potentially, to go, oh, well, all everybody cares about is Mario, so we just come out with Mario, 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 Mario. And people are, because we're already, as Nintendo fans, we're already in the background, rubbing our hands and just waiting to get that fix. It's like, hey man, where's that Metroid? You know, where's that F-Zero? You know, and we're not getting these games with Nintendo making their own hardware. Now, can you imagine if they have backers like Microsoft and Sony that are only interested in getting the Zelda and the Mario franchises or something like that? And so now they're either divided to where rather than buy one console to play all your great Nintendo franchises, you have to buy 2, even potentially 3, depending upon if anybody else comes into the market, if they make it a PC only game and an Xbox One game here and a PS4 game here. That would be quite frustrating. And then if they do go the route of Sega and they only focus on their mascot Mario, people are going to be in the background wondering, well, where's Zelda, where's F-Zero, where's all these games, and Nintendo's not going to bring that. And while yes, the idea of a system like the Wii U being the last one would be understandable, because that's sort of the same route that Sega went down. You know, they had a system that was out and it dominated the market for about a good year and a half, and it had a lot of potential and a lot of greatness that no one saw because it was overshadowed by a PlayStation. And I've talked about this time and time again, that I believe that even if Nintendo did come out with the NX, that it wouldn't matter, because all it would take is for Sony or Microsoft to come out with another system a few months to a year down the road, and suddenly it's technologically better and no one's looking at the NX anymore. So this is the reason why I think that, plus I just can't imagine a world without Nintendo. I mean, I have seriously debated this for a long time, and I am seriously debating giving up gaming altogether if Nintendo just bows out, because I can't imagine a world where I can't pick up a Nintendo related system and play my favorite systems, play my favorite games and franchises that I know have that quality to it. And if they get some young blood in there that is only focused on mobile gaming, on PC, making sure that the system is powerful and throws in microtransactions and this, that, and the other, they become the very same thing that certain gamers like myself despise about the current state of gaming. Nintendo has been the flagship of old school gaming, making it about games, not about nickel and diming us, not about throwing in microtransactions, not about online subscriptions to play games online and all this other stuff. Going forward, that might not be the case, and if they become no better than Sony and Microsoft, then there is no future in gaming, because it all becomes the same monotonous BS that we just learn to tolerate, because there's no one to stand up and say that's not how gaming should be, which is the reason why I've stuck by Nintendo for so long, because I feel as though their thought process has made the most sense. Yes, it should be about gaming. That's what the Wii U was about. It was about games first. They didn't care that it had a Blu-ray player, because you can buy a Blu-ray player for like $50. Buy a Blu-ray player. You don't need it. Plus, with the digital age of Netflix and Hulu, you just need the app. You don't really even... I mean, I have a Blu-ray player with my PS4, and I haven't even used it. I've used it for Netflix and Hulu. I don't even own a single game for my PS4 yet. The disc drive is really not even that important. And while I will stay true to Nintendo regardless, I'll probably hold up a flame like I do with Sega and talk about the old days and still play their old systems and recollect the good times. But I think that Nintendo needs to stay in. And I think that we need to get somebody who is like Iwata and can maybe sort of blend this new thinking of how games should be, but also make it about the games and make it about the quality and all this stuff. And again, only time will tell. But I want to give my 2 cents on what I think they should do and how I think is best to go forward. Now, when I say this, I mean no disrespect to anybody, and I'm not trying to be all like, well, you're just being silly because you love the Wii U. But I think that when it comes to the NX, they need to stop. And I'm not saying stop altogether, I'm just saying halt production. Because here's the thing, it wasn't going to come out in 2016 anyway. It wasn't. Developers don't even have dev kits yet. They don't have a way to fiddle around with the system and see what it's capable of and start working on it. So there's no way games would come out for it in 2016 anyway. So since we're looking at a 2017 release, why don't we just get a new president in there? You know, take the rest of the year. If you want to, make 2015 all about Iwata and, you know, memorialize him and hold board meetings, and then maybe by the end of the year, the beginning of the year or whatever, announce a new president and give that president time. You know, give that new CEO time to adjust and to look at what the NX is and what Iwata wanted to do with the next generation, and give his own spin on it. So that way by 2017 you can show off the NX and potentially give dev kits out in 2016 to have that good solid lineup. That's just my 2 cents on it. And even 2018. And also, and this is just my 2 cents of course, I think that we should wait for the NX. Not only because it was one of the last projects that Iwata was working on, but it also gives the president, the new CEO, whoever's going to run Nintendo, time to sort of come on to their own, you know, to become their own individual and become this this new face of Nintendo, like what he did when he took over the reins of the GameCube. But it also gives you time. Because if I have learned anything from you, Nintendo, you strive best when you come out last, or not last. Because if you think about last gen, you came out a couple of days, I think before or after the PS3, I can't remember which one it was, but it was like a day or two apart. The 360 had been out for a while. You know, you worked best with that. You weren't the first one to come out with the GameCube, and that was a good system too. You were the first one out of the market for a whole year with the Wii U. And no offense, because I love the Wii U, but Microsoft and Sony stomped on you. They took advantage of that year gap, and they made sure that they had better hardware because you had the hardware out. If you want to hold your cards close and not have companies steal your ideas, like you were talking about, then the best thing to do is to hold those cards close for a year or two. Wait to see what Sony and Microsoft are going to do, and then do your best to either meet that hardware or beat it. And even if it's slightly less powerful than next gen, that's fine. I won't care, because again, I love your hardware and I play them for your IPs. I have a ton of first-party games that I have yet to even play on the Wii, and on the Wii U also. So I have much respect for Nintendo as a brand and as a company, and I want to see them strive, because I believe that they are one of the last ones that have that old school thinking like Sega did, where it should be about the games that you produce, not about how much money we can suck out of the consumers and leave, you know, games half done, barely polished, and just rush it out for the sake of making a quick dollar and then fix it later. Nintendo is one of the last companies, and I worry now that they either might, you know, bow out altogether, sell themselves, go out of business completely and sell their IPs to other companies who will mess that up. There's no telling what the future holds, but I really do think that you have enough money and enough of a loyal fan base to go forward, continue making hardware, continue making the great IPs that we love to see. Because I think that at most you owe it to us. Because we don't want to see you go down the route of Sega and start making only Mario games and don't touch your other IPs as much. And we also don't want to see you gone. At least I don't. I know that there may be some people out there that they love playing your games, but they just hate playing your hardware. And tough crap. That's how the market works. You can say the same thing for Microsoft and Sony. Oh, you love playing Halo? Well, you got to buy an Xbox to do that, don't you, buddy? That's how it works. That's why we have exclusives. But when it comes to exclusives, Nintendo has more exclusives. They have more first-party exclusives and IPs that are of better quality than anything Sony and Microsoft can throw out. And I want to see that continue to go forward, regardless of what you do. Even if you do go third-party, just make sure that you come out with the great first-party content, the great IPs, the great quality. And that's just my 2 cents on it. Make sure that you put your thoughts in the comments down below about what you think about anything that I've talked about in this video. Because while I think that we need to wait on the NX, just out of respect for Iwata, but I think we also need to wait. That way, Nintendo can come out with a system, knowing what Sony and Microsoft are going to do with their next-gen systems, to be able to match that. Because the last thing that I want to see you do, Nintendo, is to come out next year, announce the NX, show off all the stuff. Sony goes, you know what, that's a good idea, let's wait a year, come out with the exact same thing, but more powerful. And then you're back in the exact same boat again that you are now, where you're basically irrelevant to people because they forget that when your system came out, it was the most powerful. When the Wii U came out, it was the most powerful system out on the market. It's what happens. But regardless of what I think, whatever's best for Nintendo will be decided within the next few months, I'm sure. And regardless of whoever takes over the reins of Nintendo, I wish them all the best. You know, I wish that they go forward and make Nintendo a success. Nintendo's always been a success in my book. They'll always be #1. But if you can make them more successful and get them back in that mainstream light, where you can knock it out of the park and make it to where they are the system to own again, that would be great. But that's just one gamer's opinion, of course. Make sure you share yours, and thanks for watching as always, guys. Have yourself a good one.